How much do you know about the 5 big ideas in Teaching for Mastery? Our series takes a look at the 5 big ideas and how they can improve maths teaching in secondary. Variation is one of the 5 big ideas. What exactly is it? And how can teachers use it in their planning and teaching? We spoke to Richard Perring, one of the NCETM's Assistant Directors for Secondary, to ask.
People talk about two different types of variation, procedural and conceptual. Fundamentally, variation is about the teacher making changes to questions and to situations that the students are presented with so that mathematical structure is exposed in some way. Variation gives students something to talk about and allows the teacher to draw attention to that particular thing. The change is intentional. It allows the students to see the mathematical structure, and that's the essence of what variation is.
Why is variation in maths important?
If we think about the 5 big ideas in Teaching for Mastery, structure is explicitly named in representation and structure, and it's woven through the other 5 big ideas. Careful use of variation allows that mathematical structure to be accessed. When it's used in a lesson, variation allows the students to have an awareness drawn to something structural. It gives an opportunity to ask questions like, why has that happened? Why did making that change create that other change? Or why is keeping that thing the same resulted in that other thing staying the same? Variation is being able to notice those differences. As an example, if we wanted students to appreciate that non-unit fractions are integer multiples of unit fractions, then we could start by telling them that 8/15 of 465 is 248. We can then ask them to find some other fractions, to find 4/15, to find 16/15, to find 8/3. And because an answer is provided at the start, the teacher can use the variation to draw attention to the structure that the changes highlight.
How does variation fit into the 5 big ideas of Teaching for Mastery?
It's important to think again about the relationship with structure and the importance of having fluency and flexibility. A way to develop flexibility is to use variation and to see what you can change and to maintain within a calculation. For example, we might want students to appreciate that any number can be transformed into another number by multiplying. This task involves filling in the missing numbers, and if you're planning to use this with your class, you'd certainly want to consider what students' responses might be, to anticipate those responses, and to think about how you might tackle any misconceptions that might arise. Variation also involves understanding what something is and what it is not, using examples and non-examples. So if you're looking at a fraction, there are lots of things that aren't fractions. An elephant isn't a fraction, but that's very much not a helpful non-example. You need to have some boundary cases, some non-examples that have some features of the concept you're trying to work with. So this allows a teacher to introduce and to dispel misconceptions and tackle mistakes that students may go on to make later.
What are your top tips for teachers who want to make effective use of variation?
There can be a perception that variation is about making small changes, and so it can be done simply and straightforwardly. But it really does need thinking about, and it's helpful to think about that with somebody else, to think about the changes you're going to make. If you're planning on your own or with departmental colleagues, then pick a mathematical concept, pick an intended object of learning, and write down a set of representative examples. Make sure they include some typical elements of the concept, and then start to tweak it and come up with some slightly weirder examples, come up with some unusual, some peculiar examples, and then think about some non-examples, think about some boundary cases. Thinking about those typical, those unusual, and those non-examples is in itself an interesting professional development task to do with colleagues.
Great, thanks Richard. If you want to learn more about using variation in your classroom or maths department, visit our website to read the full Q&A. For more information about the 5 big ideas and how your maths department can get involved, visit our website.